You know, by the age of 10, we had lived in every woman's refuge home here in Christchurch. Being raised in the system and seeing your old man go behind the wire for family violence was hard. We were those little kids that, you know, every time Dad got out of prison, we wished that he would come out a different man. Talofa lava freshies, I'm Matt Brown.
Kia ora, I'm Sarah Brown.
This is Young, Gifted and Brown. We're in Ototahi, here at my Fathers Barbers. It's the barbershop. I like to see it as a hub for the community, where our tāne, our men, can come and talanoa, walk out looking fresh but also feeling good. But when I started barbering, I started in my little garden tin shed in a little place called Aranui. And the more I cut guys that walked into my little garden tin shed in the neighbourhood, the more I realised that we were more alike than we were different. And the more men have sat in my chair, the more they just kind of opened up. So that's when I learned how sacred and important the chair was. Because a lot of my boys in the neighbourhood had gone down their paths of joining gangs, incarcerated, addicted to drugs and all that stuff. And so, yeah, it just became a hub where guys could just come and talk and release their pain and fears and frustrations.
My opinion was unsafe to share. My thoughts were unsafe to share. Being me, Matt Brown, was unsafe.
I suppose the light bulb moment was late one night when a young man named Liam walked into the barbershop. He just had this really, really sad presence about him. We obviously connected on our childhood stories, both our fathers loving alcohol. When he looked up to see his haircut, he just broke down in tears, just started crying. And I remember asking him, you know, bro, are you all right? What's wrong? And he said to me how he had planned for this haircut to be his last haircut. He wanted to look good for his funeral after he would take his own life. And it was then on that I realised that this barber chair was more than just a place where people could come and get a good haircut. You know, it was a place where people could come and start to be seen.
So if there was something that Matt felt at this stage, I don't want that word, that's not how I talk, you can still remove it or change it.
So in July we have our first book being released, She Is Not Your Rehab. And we're currently working on an online program for men's healing with the Ministry of Social Development. And we've just got our usual mahi of men's therapy groups, our programs, lots of different stuff going on.
All right, what about New Zealander of the Year nomination?
Oh, just in the waters. Immensely humbled and honoured. It's not why we do this mahi. This ngalawenga comes from their childhood abuse. Our whole point of doing this mahi is so other kids don't live in that same fear that I lived in.
Working with Matt is always creatively very challenging because we're both very creative, very, what would you say the word would be? Very strong and opinionated. So sometimes when it comes to certain creative concepts, we have certain creative differences. But every marriage has those things, and the biggest thing we ever argue about is actually creative differences to do with work.
The ultimate goal is these conversations are normalised, not just at home, but in workplaces, that we change a culture, that more men start speaking up, that more men start showing up for themselves in ways that no one else ever showed up for them, which ultimately leads to a violence-free New Zealand.